All right, we got another church here, or at least, a group that claims to be a church here at the end of the strip. Myers Park Baptist. Let's see if they're willing to talk. I'm filming a podcast here, just my own personal podcast. I'm looking to have hopefully some good conversations with some churches that are affirming of LGBT relationships. So all my cards out on the table because I don't believe in gotcha questions or surprises or ambushes or anything like that. I'm a Christian that believes that the Bible is not in support of LGBT relationships, but I wanted to get some conversations with Christians that do believe that, so that way I'm not like misrepresenting views. Maybe we can get some good dialogue going. For anyone that's willing, just kind of been walking the strip so far, seeing who I can talk to. Would you be willing to have a conversation about that?
Maybe a brief one.
Okay, brief one's fine. Maybe like 5 minutes or so, just enough to clarify positions. All right, so Myers Park Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Myers Park Baptist. Okay, and I guess what do you guys believe? And I guess what's your justification for it? I'm trying to ask it in a way that's not like too inflammatory.
We are an affirming church. We believe that the greatest commandment of all is to love. Therefore, no act of love can be condemnatory. We also believe that people can have different approaches to life, and that is beautiful, and that is part of what living in God is accepting the various ways that people come to life. And my justification for that truly does come straight from Jesus' teachings. Nothing that Jesus said condemned anyone. That's not the God that I believe in, and not the God that I've been taught to believe in.
Got you. Would you mind if I provided some pushback here in the last 3 minutes I got with you? What would you do, or what would you say, I suppose, to Christians that would push back with passages like Leviticus 18:22 or 1 Corinthians 6:9 or Matthew 5? What would you say to Christians that would give you pushback in that way?
If you follow every single rule of Leviticus, then you can't really live in this current society. You can't wear the clothes that you're wearing right now, in fact. You can't eat most of the food that we eat. So you can't just pick and choose singular parts of a book and say, oh, this one line of Leviticus means that people are going to hell, and ignore every other line. Part of the New and Old Testament is that the New Testament is the new word, and that's proclaiming a new part of belief, and Jesus coming to save everyone. If you're interested in more about kind of deconstructing the context behind the clobber passages, like Leviticus, we actually do have a queer Bible study that's happening, being led by a queer member of our church who did go and attend seminary, that deconstructs and applies context. Because a lot of the Bible passages that were being quoted and used against us as people are ones that have been mistranslated or have lost their context at the time period.
Okay, and that that would be your position for the New Testament. I think that's what you mean by clobber verses, like people clobbering over the head with them.
Yes.
That's an interesting phrase. I'll have to remember that. That's clever. But yeah, I guess that would be your position on like the New Testament passages and such like that. Okay. All right. All right. It's one way to take it, I suppose. Anything to add?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head now.
All right. Well, I do appreciate the kind conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
I hope you have a good one.
Yep. Good conversation, man. That's the best conversation so far. We gotta turn around.
Well, yeah, we do.
Yeah, just yeah. But yeah, this one, best one so far.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The whole point of this is to give these kinds of churches the opportunities to kind of clarify their own position, and just kind of make whatever argument they feel is most persuasive. I would hope it'd be biblical, but again, the kinds of people that watch this show, all we do is read. So I don't think I need to do too much pushback. I think we've done enough study of the Bible in other episodes to where if you're a faithful listener, you should already know the problems with that. But if not, I'll be back in the studio soon to break them down for you. They claim the prohibitions in Leviticus don't apply to Christians. They quote Romans 10:4, and they claim that it says, quote, Christ is the end of the law, period. Look at Romans 10:4, for Christ is the end of the law. Is there a period here? No. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. If you're going to stand on a degree, then read like you got a degree. Read like you actually made it through a class of Hooked on Phonics, bro. We read earlier in Matthew that Jesus said that he's not coming to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And so if you put the period here after law, then that would create a contradiction. Christ is the end of the law, but Jesus said that he's not the end of the law. He's the fulfillment of it. That's different. When Jesus says he's fulfilling the law, he doesn't mean abolishment. Jesus did not forgive us of our sins by getting rid of the law. He forgave us of our sins by fulfilling the law. That's different. But what does it mean, the end of the law for righteousness? It means that Jesus is the end of looking to the Torah for righteousness of salvation. Jesus is the end of looking towards obedience to the Torah as your salvation. Christians are freed from seeking perfect obedience to the law for righteousness. We believe in Jesus, and he is our alternate and better source of righteousness. Hebrews 8:13, in speaking of a new covenant, he makes the first one obsolete. The author of Hebrews is arguing that the old covenant itself, baked within the old covenant, was this idea that it wouldn't be forever. Right? Part of the old covenant, one of its promises, was the promise of a new one. This is what prophet Jeremiah says. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will establish a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. For they did not continue in my covenant, and so I showed no concern for them, declares the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. Okay, so what is the covenant that he's going to make? This is the covenant. I will put my laws into their minds and write them on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall not teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, for I will be merciful towards their iniquities, and I will remember their sins no more. This covenant that he will make is one where he will put his laws into the minds and hearts of those that partake of the new covenant. Specifically speaking, Israel, but Gentiles are grafted into this, right? Anyone that accepts the terms of the new covenant will have the laws of God put into their minds and written on their hearts. Question: what law is being referenced here? It's got to be the Torah, right? So the new covenant, part of its operation is that the Torah will be placed into the minds and hearts of those that partake. If Jesus ends the law, then what law is being put into the minds and hearts of the adherents? No, it ends the idea of looking to the law to save you. Romans chapter 3. We hold that one is justified by faith apart from works of the law. But then in verse 31 he says, do we then overthrow the law by this faith? By no means. On the contrary, we uphold the law. We're not overthrowing the law, we're upholding the law by faith. The usual rebuttal to this is, well, if you're saying that the laws are going to be written on your hearts, then why don't you do all the laws? You're only doing some of the laws. Remember, Jesus fulfilled the law. So laws concerning temple sacrifices for sin, atonement, and or togetherness in a general sense no longer apply because their demand has been fulfilled, not because they've been abrogated or deleted or some other such thing. You can say it's nuance, but it's nuance that's been foundational to Christian teaching from the beginning. This is Christianity. So if you're going to ask me, hey, Christian, why don't you follow the laws about eating shellfish or whatever? Literally because Jesus fulfills the purpose of those laws, right? The purpose of the food laws was to mark the, one of their purposes anyway, was to mark the Jewish people as the people from whom the Messiah would come. And also the second reason is because the Torah says that those laws are specifically for Jews anyway. And I personally, Saint K, am not a Jew, do not, I don't come from Jewish descent. So the food laws never would have applied to me anyway. But now in this age, with the Messiah having had come, right, I can look in history books and see that Jesus was Jewish. I don't need something like the food laws to be a special marking or something like that. Now we know who he is, right? Why don't I, as a Christian, give animal sacrifices? Because I don't need to. Jesus, by one sacrifice, put away my sin. So me sacrificing animals in a temple would be a waste of time and effort and a denial of what he did for me. Why don't I, as a Christian, follow the ritual purity laws of the Torah? Not because they're quote unquote deleted, but because Jesus fulfills their requirement. The ritual purity laws are to give the worshiper a kind of ritual purity to engage with the rites of the temple, but Jesus is greater than the temple. Jesus is my cleansing. Jesus makes me clean and pays for my sin. That's a section of the law that is irrelevant to me because I have righteousness already. I don't need it. It's not deleted, but I don't need it. It makes perfect sense for people that want to hear. Hebrews 10, the law has but a shadow of the good things to come instead of the true form of these realities. Because of this, it can never, by the same sacrifices that are continually offered every year, make perfect those who draw near. Otherwise, would they not have ceased to be offered, since the worshippers, having once been cleansed, would no longer have any consciousness of sins? But in these sacrifices there is a reminder of sins every year, for it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. The sacrifice of Jesus does something that the sacrifices of the Torah could never do. Jesus actually cleanses me. Because of that, I don't need it. That's what he says. For by a single offering he has perfected for all time those who are being sanctified. If that's true, then a large portion of the Old Testament law becomes irrelevant to me because it's been fulfilled. I don't need a temple to give me purity. I have Messiah. I don't need a temple to deal with my sins. I have Messiah who puts them away. Ask yourself, is Leviticus 18:22 a kind of law that finds its fulfillment in Jesus? No, it's a law that's telling you what God judges. Because the context of Leviticus 18 is, hey, I'm judging these other nations for doing these things. And one of those things is men lying with men as they would with a woman and vice versa. That's one of the reasons I'm casting these nations out by your hand. If you want to stay here, then don't do what they did. So then I won't do to you what I'm about to do to them. That is a timeless kind of a law. That's the kind of law that transcends covenants. The same way thievery is forbidden no matter what covenant you're in. This is one of those things.